Welcome to Sleepy Tales Stories, where dreams begin and worries fade. Let your mind unwind as soothing whispers and gentle stories guide you into deep, restful sleep. Close your eyes, relax, and let the journey to tranquility begin. Once upon a time, in a quiet village tucked between soft, rolling hills, there was a small cottage covered in ivy, its stone walls warm and inviting, just like the stories of old. The air was always fresh here, carrying with it the smell of moss and the sweet scent of rain that came often, gently tapping on windows and rooftops in a rhythmic dance. It was a place where the days passed slowly, and nights were always quiet, with only the soft rustling of trees and the faraway call of owls to break the silence. In this cottage lived a kind and gentle old woman named Maella. She was a woman of great wisdom, known for her soft laugh that bubbled up like a stream, and her gentle hands that could mend almost anything. But there was one thing about Maella that no one in the village knew, not even the children who loved to visit her for her warm apple pies or the soft woolen scarves she knitted in the evenings. Maella had a secret that lived in the heart of her cozy little cottage, hidden away under layers of blankets and old pillows, tucked into a corner where no one would ever look. That secret was a magic blanket. Now, before you imagine something too grand, too extravagant, let me tell you that this blanket was not like any other. It wasn't made of shimmering gold or sparkling stars, though that would have been lovely, wouldn't it? No, this blanket was simple, woven from the softest wool, with intricate patterns that seemed to change and shift ever so slightly, as if it had a life of its own. It was the color of storm clouds at dusk, deep gray with hints of soft lavender, and it had the most unusual quality. Anyone who wrapped themselves in it would fall into the most peaceful, restful sleep they had ever known. The magic of the blanket wasn't in its threads, nor in the way it shimmered in the moonlight, though it certainly did. It was in the way it seemed to understand the person who lay beneath it. It could calm racing thoughts, still a worried heart, and carry away the burdens of a busy mind. To those who needed it most, the blanket would carry them into a dream world filled with soft breezes, gentle rain, and fields of flowers as far as the eye could see. But Maella never let anyone near the blanket, for it was too special, too important. She had been gifted the blanket many years ago when she was much younger. by a mysterious traveler who had knocked on her door one evening, just as the rain began to fall. It had been a night like any other, the wind whispering through the trees. When Maella heard a soft knock on the door, the sound was almost lost in the gentle rhythm of the raindrops. But still, Maella had gone to the door, curiosity tugging at her heart. She opened it to find a man standing there, drenched from the rain, holding something wrapped in a faded cloth. His eyes were kind, but there was an air of something more ancient about him, something that Maella could not quite place. He smiled gently as he offered the cloth to her. "This is for you," he said in a voice that was both soothing and deep, like the sound of distant thunder. "It will bring you peace, though you may never understand why." Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the mist, leaving Maella standing in the doorway, holding the soft, mysterious cloth. Inside the cloth was the magic blanket. From that day forward, Maella kept the blanket tucked safely away. She would bring it out when the storm clouds rolled in, when the world seemed too noisy and the days too long. She would wrap herself in it, feeling the warmth spread through her bones as the blanket whispered its soothing secrets. And sometimes, just sometimes, she would share its magic with others, like the village children who came to her for comfort, or the tired travelers who passed through the village in need of rest. The blanket was only for those who truly needed it, and its magic could not be shared lightly, for it had the power to heal, to restore, and to calm. Maella had learned over the years to listen closely to the whispers of the blanket, to understand when it was time to offer it to someone, and when to keep it safely tucked away. One chilly autumn evening, as the sky darkened and the wind began to pick up, Maella felt something in the air, a certain heaviness, as though the world was holding its breath. The rain began to fall, soft at first. But then, as the evening deepened, it grew into a steady patter, tapping on the roof and windows with a soothing rhythm. It was on this evening, when the world was wrapped in a blanket of rain, that something very unexpected happened. A knock came at the door. It was not a gentle knock like before, but one that was hurried, urgent. Maella opened the door to find a young girl standing there, soaking wet, her face pale and her eyes wide with worry. She was shivering, and as soon as Maella saw her, she knew that something was terribly wrong. "Please," the girl said, her voice trembling. I can't sleep. I haven't been able to sleep for weeks. The dreams, they won't stop. They chase me. They won't let me rest. Maella's heart went out to the girl. She had seen such things before: anxiety, fear, restless nights. But this was different. There was something more to this girl's eyes, something more desperate, as if she had been running from something she could not escape. "Come in, child," Maella said softly, guiding the girl into the warm cottage. She led her to the hearth, where a small fire flickered, casting shadows across the room. "Tell me what you dream about." The girl hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's always the same. There's a storm, and I'm alone in it. The rain is so cold, and the wind is so strong. I try to find shelter, but it's like I can never escape. And then I hear something calling me, a voice in the wind, but I don't know who it is or what it wants." Maella listened closely, her heart heavy with understanding. She had known that sometimes the dreams of restless souls could take on a life of their own, but she had never heard anything like this before. "I see," Maella said gently. "You are troubled by your dreams, but I believe I have something that may help." She reached over to a small chest, the one where the magic blanket was kept, and she pulled it out. The blanket was soft in her hands, its colors shifting gently in the dim light. She unfolded it carefully, as though it were something precious, and draped it over the girl. "Lie down, child," Maella said, her voice calm and steady. "Close your eyes and let the blanket carry you. It will protect you. It will calm your fears." The girl hesitated for only a moment before she lay down on the soft cushions near the fire, the warmth of the blanket surrounding her like a hug. Maella sat quietly beside her, watching the girl's breathing slow, her face relaxing as the blanket's magic began to work. And as the rain continued to fall outside, Maella sat by the fire, waiting for the storm to pass, for the dreams to quiet, for the blanket to weave its gentle spell of peace. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, its gentle warmth spreading through the room. Outside, the rain continued to fall in a steady rhythm, as if the sky itself was singing a lullaby. Maella sat quietly beside the young girl, watching her, making sure that the magic of the blanket was working its quiet wonders. The room was filled with a peaceful silence, the kind of silence that comes after a long day, when all the thoughts in your head slow down and the world outside seems to disappear into a gentle dream. The fire flickered, casting soft shadows on the walls, and for a moment, Maella allowed herself to drift with the rhythm of the rain. She could hear the girl's breathing now, deep, slow, and steady. There was a change in the air, something soft and comforting, like a soft breeze passing through the open window. Maella smiled to herself, knowing that the blanket was beginning its work. It was always like this. At first, there would be restlessness, a shifting of the body as the weight of the world seemed to press down. But slowly, the blanket would soothe and settle the soul, like the rain, calming the earth beneath it. The young girl shifted slightly, and Maella leaned closer, her voice soft as a whisper in the quiet room. "You are safe here," she said. "Let go of your worries, your fears, just for a little while. Let the blanket carry you to a place where the storms cannot follow." The girl's eyes fluttered closed, her face softening, the tension in her body melting away like mist in the morning sun. Maella watched her for a moment, her heart filled with a deep, quiet affection. She had always known that the magic blanket was powerful. But it wasn't just the blanket that worked its magic. It was the calm, patient heart behind it. The blanket needed Maella's steady presence, her calmness, her belief in its power. As the minutes passed, Maella remained still, her eyes fixed on the young girl. She could feel the magic in the room now, swirling around them both like a soft, glowing mist. It was in the quiet whispers of the rain outside, in the crackling of the fire, and in the slow, steady rhythm of the girl's breathing. It wasn't long before the girl's face relaxed completely, her brow unfurrowing. The storm in her heart seemed to quiet, and with it, her body grew still. Maella could feel the moment when the last of her worries slipped away, as if the blanket had folded them into the soft folds of its warmth and carried them into the stillness of the night. Outside, the rain began to taper off, turning from a steady patter to a soft, gentle drizzle. The world seemed to be slowing down, as if the rain, too, was taking a deep breath, allowing everything to rest. The trees outside swayed gently in the breeze, their leaves rustling softly, like the sound of whispers carried by the wind. Maella stood up slowly, careful not to disturb the girl. She walked to the window and gazed out into the night, watching as the rain lightened, leaving behind only the faintest scent of earth and fresh air. The clouds were parting now, revealing the faint glow of stars peeking through the dark sky. The moon, just a sliver of light, hung high above like a guardian watching over the world. Maella sighed softly, her heart filled with peace. The storm had passed, not just in the world outside, but within the girl as well. She could feel it in the air, that subtle shift, the stillness after the storm, the quiet that always followed the rain. She turned back to the girl, who was now asleep, her body curled beneath the magic blanket, a peaceful smile on her face. It was a smile that spoke of dreams, of safety, of a world where the storms could not reach. Maella knelt beside her, her old hands brushing a strand of hair from the girl's face, and she whispered softly, as if speaking to the very heart of the girl's soul. "Sleep well, dear one. Let the night carry you. Let the dreams come, soft and kind. The storm is over now." And with that, Maella stood, her eyes lingering on the girl for a moment longer before she quietly tiptoed from the room, leaving the girl in the warmth of the blanket's magic. The hours passed, and the night grew deeper. The fire slowly burned out, leaving only a faint glow in the hearth. Outside, the rain had stopped completely, leaving the world bathed in silence. The wind had died down, and only the soft rustling of the trees remained, whispering secrets in the darkness. Maella moved about her small cottage, tidying up, preparing for the day ahead. Her thoughts drifted as she worked, but always her heart returned to the girl resting in the other room. She wondered about the dreams that might come now. Would they be kinder dreams, gentle and soothing, like the soft rain that had wrapped the world in its embrace? As the clock struck midnight, Maella paused by the door to the girl's room, listening to the quiet breathing from within. The girl was still asleep, her body relaxed and calm beneath the blanket, the nightmares nowhere in sight. Maella's heart swelled with a quiet joy, knowing that the magic blanket had done its work, for now. But she also knew that one night, the blanket would be needed again. It would always be needed, for there were many in the world who carried storms within them, storms they could not escape. But the magic blanket would always be there, ready to offer its peace, its comfort, its shelter from the world outside. She smiled softly to herself, and with one last glance at the peaceful room, Maella went to bed. The night was quiet now, and the world outside seemed to sleep along with them, wrapped in the soft embrace of the rain. And as Maella closed her eyes, she too felt the magic of the blanket, a quiet, gentle presence, comforting her as she drifted into a deep and peaceful sleep. The kind of sleep where dreams are kind, where the heart is at ease, and where the rain, once again, falls softly on the roof. The night passed quietly, as nights often do when the world is at rest, and all the worries of the day are tucked away beneath a blanket of sleep. the rain had faded into nothing more than a whisper, leaving behind the soft glow of the moon. The stars hung high above like silent sentinels, watching over the peaceful earth below. In the quiet cottage, Maëla awoke as the first light of dawn filtered through the window, casting a gentle golden hue across the room. The birds were singing their morning songs, and the air was fresh with the scent of wet earth and pine. A new day had begun. She stretched slowly, feeling the warmth of the bed beneath her. For a moment, she lingered in the stillness, savoring the quiet of the morning, the kind of peace that comes after a storm, when everything feels newly washed and renewed. As Maëla slipped out of bed and moved to the window, she gazed out into the world beyond. The village was still asleep, wrapped in the soft light of early morning, the world outside calm and untouched. The trees in the distance were swaying gently, their leaves rustling in the soft breeze, as though they too were sighing with relief after the night storm. Maëla smiled softly, the quiet satisfaction of a job well done settling in her heart. The girl, who had come to her the previous evening, troubled by her dreams, was still asleep in the next room, wrapped in the warm, comforting embrace of the magic blanket. And Maëla knew, without needing to check, that she would sleep for many more hours, her mind at peace, her heart calm. But as Maëla prepared breakfast, a quiet thought settled into her mind, one that she had often pondered in the stillness of her life. What was it that made people so restless? She had seen it so many times before. People who struggled to sleep, who couldn't find peace in their hearts, who were haunted by their own fears or worries. It was something Maëla understood deeply. She too had known the feeling of being lost in the storm inside her mind. But the blanket, the magic blanket, had always been her refuge, her safe place. The blanket had taught her that even the heaviest of storms could pass, that even the darkest of nights could give way to the light of morning. As Maëla set the table, her mind wandered back to the night before, to the young girl who had come to her door. The girl who had been chased by her own fears had sought out Maëla's help. She had been desperate, alone, and on the edge of giving up. Maëla could still hear the tremble in the girl's voice, the way her hands had shaken when she first knocked on the door, afraid that the storm inside her would never end. The blanket had worked its magic on the girl, just as it had worked its magic on so many before her. It had soothed her fears, quieted her restless mind, and wrapped her in a cocoon of peace where the storms could not reach her. Maëla paused for a moment, looking down at the table where she had set the morning meal. It was simple, just a bowl of warm porridge with honey, a loaf of fresh bread, and a cup of chamomile tea. But to her, it was enough. A meal made with love and care, something that had the power to comfort the soul. Just then, the soft sound of footsteps echoed from the other room. Mayela turned to see the young girl, now awake, standing in the doorway. Her hair was mussed from sleep, but her eyes were no longer wide with worry. There was a softness in them now, a kind of calm that had not been there the night before. "Good morning," Mayela said softly, her voice warm and welcoming. "How did you sleep, dear one?" The girl hesitated for a moment, and then a small smile appeared on her face. "I slept so well," she said, her voice still a little hushed, as though she couldn't quite believe it. "I haven't slept like that in so long. The dreams, they were gone." Mayela smiled, her heart swelling with quiet happiness. "I'm glad to hear that," she said, motioning for the girl to sit at the table. "Come, eat something. You'll need your strength after a good night's rest." The girl hesitated again, as if unsure whether she deserved the peace she had found. But then, with a deep breath, she took a seat at the table, her fingers brushing gently over the warm bowl of porridge. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, just the soft clink of spoons against bowls, the comforting warmth of the meal, and the peace that seemed to fill the room as the morning light grew brighter. As they ate, Mayela found herself wondering about the nature of dreams. Why did they come? And why did they sometimes carry with them such weight? Was it the mind's way of working through the things we couldn't face in waking life? Or was it something more? Something deeper, more mysterious than that? "Do you remember your dreams from last night?" Mayela asked gently, breaking the silence. The girl looked up, her brow furrowing for a moment as she thought. I think I do," she said softly. "There was no storm, no wind, no cold rain. It was calm. There were flowers and soft clouds. I could hear the sound of birds singing. It was peaceful." Mayela smiled at the girl's description. The dreams the blanket brought were always gentle, always filled with quiet moments of beauty. She had known that too. For her, the blanket had never brought anything but calmness and serenity, carrying her into soft places where the heart could heal and rest. The girl's voice brought Mayela back to the present. "I feel different," the girl said, her eyes wide with wonder. "Like I'm not carrying that storm anymore. I can breathe. I feel light. Thank you, Mayela. Thank you for helping me." Maella nodded, her smile kind and gentle. The blanket helped, but it is you who found the peace inside yourself. You just needed a little rest, and sometimes a little help finding it. The girl smiled softly, her eyes glistening with gratitude. I'll remember this, always. Thank you for your kindness. Maella's heart swelled with quiet joy, and she reached out to gently pat the girl's hand. You are always welcome here, my dear. Never forget, the storms will always pass, and when they do, there is peace waiting for you on the other side. The two of them sat together for a while longer, drinking tea and enjoying the calm morning. The rain outside had stopped completely, and the village was now awake, the soft sounds of morning activity beginning to fill the air. But for Maella and the girl, it was as though the world outside was still, as though time had paused in this quiet, peaceful moment. And in that moment, Maella realized that she had once again been given a gift, one that was even more magical than the blanket itself. The gift of helping someone find their way back to peace, to rest, to a place where the storms could no longer reach them. As the morning light poured into the room, Maella rose from the table, her heart light and full of contentment. The girl would soon be on her way, her heart calm and her mind at rest. But Maella knew that, should she ever need it again, the magic blanket would always be there, waiting to offer its quiet peace, ready to carry anyone who needed it into the soft embrace of restful sleep. The morning passed slowly, as mornings often do when there is no rush to the day, no urgent call to action. The air in the cottage was warm and still, filled with the soft scent of fresh bread and the comforting hum of a life lived simply. Maella moved about her home with practiced ease, cleaning the hearth, tidying the shelves, and folding the blankets that had been left out to air. Outside, the world seemed to stretch lazily, the sky a soft blue that deepened as the day wore on. The girl, who had now eaten and rested, seemed to grow more at ease with each passing hour. She wandered around the cottage, inspecting the little trinkets and treasures Maella had collected over the years: painted stones from the river, hand-carved wooden animals, and bright, colorful ribbons that hung like forgotten rainbows from the rafters. After a while, the girl returned to where Maella was sitting by the fire, her face thoughtful, her eyes far away, as though she was still processing the peace she had found within herself. Maella, the girl began softly, her voice tentative. I've been thinking. You said last night that the blanket can carry someone to a place where storms can't reach them. But I wonder, Is there a way to bring that peace with you, even when you leave here? Mayela looked up at the girl, her eyes kind and wise. She had seen that same curiosity in many people who had come to her over the years. They all wanted to know, how do you hold on to the peace you find when the world outside is so loud, so heavy? It's a good question, Mayela said gently. She leaned back in her chair, her fingers absently tracing the edge of a well-worn book. The blanket helps to show us a way to rest, to let go of the weight we carry. But when you leave this place, when you step back into the world outside, the key is remembering what you've found here. The peace, the quiet. The girl nodded slowly, as if she understood, but still felt uncertain. But how do you remember it when the world feels so busy, so loud? Mayela smiled softly, her eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. Ah, my dear, that is where the magic of the blanket comes in. The blanket is more than just warmth and comfort. It's a reminder. It reminds us that there is always peace inside, even when the world outside is chaotic. And whenever you feel lost again, whenever the storm returns, you can remember the blanket. You can carry its magic with you in your heart. The girl sat quietly for a long while, mulling over Mayela's words. The silence between them was not awkward, but full of the unspoken understanding that sometimes the answers to life's big questions don't come quickly. They grow in quiet moments, like seeds planted in fertile soil, waiting for the right time to bloom. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, its gentle pops the only sound in the room. The rain, which had stopped for most of the day, began to fall again, gently tapping on the roof, creating a soft, familiar rhythm. The girl closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the air that was filled with the smell of the earth and the warmth of the fire. For a moment, she let herself relax into the stillness, her shoulders dropping with relief, her mind slowing, as if everything had come full circle. "I think I understand," the girl said at last, her voice quieter now, a peaceful certainty in her tone. "It's like the blanket isn't just something you wrap around you. It's something you carry with you, inside you." Mayela nodded, her heart swelling with quiet joy. "Exactly," she said softly. "The blanket teaches us that peace isn't something we have to search for outside ourselves. It's always within us, waiting to be remembered. And when we need it, it's there, just like the blanket. It will always be there to carry you back to a place of calm." The girl's face softened, her expression peaceful, as though she had just discovered a secret that had been waiting for her all along. They sat together for a while longer, sharing the quiet morning in a way that was neither rushed nor forced. Outside, the rain began to pick up. The soft rhythm of the droplets tapping on the windows, adding a layer of comfort to the moment. It was as if the world, too, was slowing down, inviting them to take their time, to enjoy this simple, peaceful moment before the day truly began. Eventually, the girl stood up, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she were savoring the stillness of the cottage. "Thank you, Maëla," she said softly, her voice filled with gratitude. "For everything. I don't think I can say it enough. I've never felt like this before. I don't think I've ever been at peace like this." Maëla smiled, her eyes warm. "You are always welcome here, dear one. The blanket will always be here for you, whenever you need it. But remember, peace isn't something that can be taken away. It's always with you, inside you." The girl nodded, her face lighting up with a bright, genuine smile. It was a smile that seemed to reflect the calmness she had found, the clarity that had been restored in her heart. "Thank you," she said again, her voice steady and sure. "I'll carry that with me." Maëla rose from her chair, her old joints creaking slightly as she stood. She took the girl's hands in her own, giving them a gentle squeeze. "You're stronger than you know, my dear. And now you carry the magic of the blanket inside you. It's part of you now." For a moment, they stood there, just holding each other's gaze. And in that silence, something passed between them. Something deep and unspoken. A bond formed by trust, by kindness, by the shared understanding that peace, true peace, comes not from the world outside, but from within. The girl finally released Maëla's hands, taking a step back. "I think it's time for me to go," she said softly. Maëla nodded, though her heart felt a quiet sadness at the thought of her new friend leaving. But she knew that the girl was ready. The peace she had found here would travel with her, no matter where she went. "I understand," Maëla said. "The world is waiting for you. But remember that you can always come back here whenever you need to. The blanket will always be here." The girl smiled again, her eyes sparkling with newfound hope. "Thank you for everything." With that, she turned toward the door. The soft sound of her footsteps was the only noise as she walked out into the gentle rain, leaving Maëla standing in the doorway for a moment, watching her go. The girl turned back once, waving softly to Maëla, before disappearing into the mist of the rain-soaked morning. Maëla watched until she was out of sight, a quiet peace settling in her chest. She had done what she could. And now it was time for the girl to walk her own path, carrying the magic of the blanket in her heart. As the door closed gently behind her, Mayela turned back into the cottage. She moved slowly, feeling the warmth of the fire, the softness of the blanket in the next room, and the quiet rhythm of the rain tapping on the windows. She sighed deeply, grateful for the peace she had found within herself, and for the peace she had been able to share. The blanket, after all, was not just for those who came seeking rest. It was a reminder, for herself as much as anyone else, that peace was always there, waiting to be remembered, no matter the storm. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle by the time Mayela returned to the hearth, where the fire had burned low and warm, casting its last embers across the room in soft orange glows. Outside, the world was quiet, the kind of quiet that came only after a storm had passed, and the earth itself seemed to take a deep breath. The birds were silent now, their songs fading with the light. But in the distance, the steady murmur of the river could still be heard, carrying the rain's final whispers. Mayela moved slowly, her hands tracing the familiar movements of someone who had lived in harmony with the rhythms of nature for as long as she could remember. She took a seat by the fire, the warmth of the flames against her skin, a gentle reminder of the comfort she had always found in this small cottage. The blanket, still resting on the chair nearby, glowed faintly in the firelight, its soft, magical presence ever constant. She thought about the girl who had come to her the night before. She thought about the storm inside her, the deep fears and worries that had made her restless and lost. But most of all, Mayela thought about how much she had changed in such a short time, how the magic blanket had not only carried her to rest, but had allowed her to find something within herself. The peace, the quiet strength that had been there all along, waiting to be recognized. There was a softness in the air now, a gentle hum of satisfaction that filled Mayela's heart as she sat in silence. The blanket had done its work, and now it rested. It was no longer just an object of magic. It was a symbol, a reminder of the stillness that lived within everyone, even when the world outside was loud and chaotic. The storms would come, yes, but they would always pass, and on the other side of them, peace awaited. As she gazed into the fire, Mayela couldn't help but smile. She had lived a long life, filled with both joys and hardships, but she had learned one thing above all, that peace is not something you find in the world, but something you find inside yourself. And that was the greatest magic of all. The sky outside had darkened completely, and the rain was now little more than a faint drizzle, a soft murmur against the windows. Maëla stood up slowly, her old bones creaking slightly as she stretched. The evening was drawing to a close, and with it, another chapter in the ongoing story of this quiet, magical place. The girl had gone, but the magic of the blanket would remain, always there for anyone who needed it. Maëla moved to the small window that looked out over the village below. In the distance, she could see the smoke rising from the chimneys of the homes, tiny wisps of warmth drifting into the evening air. The world was still and peaceful, the air clear after the storm. She breathed it in deeply, savoring the quiet, the serenity that only comes after a rain. And as Maëla stood there, watching the stars begin to blink to life in the sky, she realized that the magic of the blanket was not just in its warmth or its power to calm restless hearts. No, the true magic of the blanket was in the way it reminded everyone who encountered it of something even more important: the power to rest, to let go, and to trust in the quiet moments that come after the storm. The girl had left with a heart full of peace, but Maëla knew that, like the rain, the magic of the blanket would always return when needed. It was a cycle, a rhythm, a part of the natural world that moved with the seasons, with the storms, with the silence that follows. With a final glance out the window, Maëla turned back into the cottage, where the fire was nearly gone, leaving behind only the faintest glow. She walked to the chair where the blanket lay, folding it neatly, its soft folds resting like a gentle sigh. She whispered softly to the blanket, as if speaking to an old, trusted friend. "Thank you for all the comfort you bring." For a long moment, Maëla simply stood there, listening to the quiet of the night, feeling the weight of the peace that now filled the cottage. The world outside was still wet from the rain, and the air was cool, but inside there was warmth, a warmth that went far beyond the fire. The blanket, though now folded neatly, still seemed to hum with the soft, calming magic that had brought so many to rest. And Maëla knew that it would always be there for those who needed it. It had already worked its magic, not only on the girl, but on so many others who had crossed this threshold, seeking rest and finding something deeper, something more lasting than sleep. As the night deepened and the stars twinkled brightly above, Maëla settled back into her favorite chair by the fire, feeling the warmth of the hearth, the soft weight of the blanket beside her, and the quiet hum of the world at rest. And there, in the soft stillness of that peaceful evening, Maela closed her eyes, trusting in the rhythm of the world around her. The storm had passed. The rain had stopped. The magic was still there, always, within her, within the blanket, and within the hearts of all who had found their way to this place.